Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the Micon Hour. We are a mining consultancy that has provided independent professional advice to mining companies, providers of capital, law firms, and government agencies for over 30 years. Staffed by senior industry consultants with extensive international experience, we are here to discuss relevant topics for the benefit of our mineral industry followers. And now, here is your host, Micon's Mineral Resource Specialist, Alan San Martin.
Hello everyone, I am Alan San Martin. We are happy to have you back for another episode of the Micon Hour. I'd like to begin with our sustainability statement. At Micon, we work with our clients to promote responsible mining and to integrate the principles of sustainability into their mining projects. In this episode, we will talk about the spotted dog, still an issue in mineral resource classification. I'm here today with my colleague and co-host, Bill Lewis. He's joining us from the Toronto office. Bill is a senior geologist and director of Micon. Hello, Bill. Welcome back to another episode. How are you doing today?
Hello, Alan. I'm doing very well. Yourself?
Yes, very, very good. Happy to be back and do another episode, which is very, very useful for our clients. So if we start, Bill, but very basics, what is meant by a spotted dog?
Well, Alan, spotted dog was actually the name of a paper that was presented at the 6th International Mining and Geological Conference in Australia in 2006. And it was authored by P.R. Stephenson and his colleagues at the time. And in his paper, he defined a spotted dog output as those in which blocks of inferred resources or unclassified material separated blocks of measured and or indicated resources, or individual drill holes are surrounded by basically circles of measured and indicated resource blocks. Micon would include in this definition isolated blocks of mineral resources surrounded by unclassified material, or in some cases lower classified material, and those based upon a single drill hole, and those based solely upon distance from a sample point.
All right.
So
Yeah.
that's the sort of the definition.
So, and how this spotted dog happen?
Well, spotted dog happens if you want to show the first image. Spotted dog is exactly and is a good example of is in this first image, where we see that measured is little circles. Sometimes they're interconnected, and surrounded by circles of inferred material. So in this case, this is how it happens. It's usually based on either distance measured from a single drill hole, or in the modern case, using geostatistical estimation methods that basically, variography, for instance, it says you can push from a certain point or certain known sample out for a certain distance into the unknown. So this is very, very typical of using geostatistical estimation methods, where you're solely relying on the extent of a search ellipse or distance from sample points to classify resources.
So it's sort of like an unfinished product. It's just taking the biography and let it populate without checking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, and if I may ask, what is the problem of having spotted dog in a resource classification? And in the second part of the question is this addressed by the CIM and JORC standards?
Well, that's a very good question, Alan. Yes, it is addressed by CIM and JORC standards, because CIM and JORC both define resources as basically the location, quantity, grade, quality, continuity, and other geological characteristics that are known, established, or interpreted from specific geological evidence and knowledge, which includes sampling, and other methods. But the key thing here is continuity. So it is addressed by CIM and JORC because it defines continuity. The first problem that it is a problem in a resource classification because basically if you end up with a spotted dog, you're really saying to your readers or your potential investors that you don't have confidence in the continuity of these grades. And that is a key thing because, the modern definitions of measured, indicated, and inferred resources go from, measured is your highest confidence category down to your lowest confidence category. So if you suddenly have, circles of measured and indicated material, it means you don't really have confidence. So, I would say that, that's the key. It is a problem because it's based on confidence. The more spotted dog you are, the less confidence you have in the higher categorizations.
Okay. So now, as you know, the resources are the foundation for doing reserves. So in this case, how the spotted dog can potentially affect the economics of a project?
Well, I guess the classification that the picture that you have up is really good. Here you have indicated and inferred resources. To the left of the picture, you've got a really good area that you have lots of confidence in the indicated classification. So the indicated classification, once you apply your modifying factors, your mining factors and stuff like that to bring it up to a reserve, that indicated will become probable. So here on the left-hand side, you're basically saying it's a lot of red, there's a little splotch of blue in there, but generally it's quite a bit of red. You have really good confidence that you can bring that upon application of, the modifying factors into the probable category. If you look at the right side of the picture, you have all these little circles, and you're basically saying there's no confidence in here. You're basically just applying circles. So you're taking that centroid sample and you're applying a circle around it. You're basically saying there's absolutely no confidence in the continuity here. And this would be probably and should be classified as inferred material pending further work.
Yeah, because you cannot make a sensible mine plan of those spotted.
Exactly.
Effects.
You're not going to go in and mine each of those little circles as probable resources. Whereas you can do a proper mine plan, either underground or open pit, depending on the location of this material, on the stuff to the left. So if you were looking at a long-term economic resources, your resources really are only in your reserves, I should say, are really only in the left side. So, the project might not be economic if you're just looking at mining the left side. Whereas when you have all the material on the right, if you were to take that material and bring it into the indicated category and therefore into the probable category
Yeah.
on a mining point of view, then you might have an economic project.
Right.
So yes, the spotted dog does potentially very much impact the resources and ultimately the reserves and the economics of the project. You know,
Correct.
we
Yes.
have seen, Micon has seen projects in the past where there has been just that. You know, the client has ended up with a spotted dog in both open pit or underground projects, and you know, they want to do a feasibility on it, but they can't because they're trying to go in and cherry pick the nice high grade areas, and it's not economic to do that. You know, you can't,
Correct.
mines are not going in and cherry picking material. They're
Right.
going in and mining blocks of material and continuous blocks of material.
Okay. So this practice of doing the classification is basically subject to the QP, which is the author of the resource estimate. So how can a QP correct the spotted dog?
Well, what a QP has to, well, the definition of a QP is you have experience in that mineral and in that type of deposits. So if you look at the example you've just put on the screen, you
Yeah.
can see here that, you know, there's a bunch of spotted dog effects to the measured material. You know, there is some spotted dog to the indicated material. But when you go back and after you've done your resource estimate, you really have to step back, look at it visually from this point of view, and look at, you know, what blocks are measured, what blocks are indicated, what blocks are inferred, and do a visual re-estimation or smoothing of your deposit. Again,
Yeah.
based on your knowledge of that deposit type. So in this case, you would take this case, your original stuff was the spotted dog version in A. And then when you go back, you review it and you say, okay, there's a lot of inferred material here. I do see a portion that's indicated. So in this case, they smoothed it, said, okay, I believe this area, small area is indicated, the rest is inferred. You know, there wasn't enough area to really say with confidence that there was an area of measured material when you look at this. There were some spots.
Yeah.
You know, the next example is sort of the same thing. You've got measured, indicated, and inferred in your first pass on the left, and on the right, you know, the QP has gone in and said, okay, you know, I don't believe there's a huge extent of measured material, but I believe there is enough evidence that I can continuously put some blocks into measured, given a number of drill holes. These would be surrounded by indicated material. And then along the edges, sort of your inferred material.
Yeah.
So in this case, you've got some measured, maybe not as much as you had in the original one. You've got some indicated, probably more than your original indicated said, because you've downgraded some measured into indicated category. And you've got your surrounding inferred material.
Okay.
And QPs should be able to go in and, again, based on their knowledge, upgrade or downgrade resources accordingly based on this premise of, can I deduce, and can I confidently say that there's, the material, the quantity, grade, quality, and more importantly, the continuity is there to reclassify material as measured, indicated, or inferred, and remove this spotted dog effect.
Yeah. So after the QP corrects this problem, because it's a problem for any project, so are there any other recommendations that you will say to take care about?
Yes, I think there are a number of recommendations. One, you need to advise your client that you're seeing a spotted dog effect. And based on that, you have to educate a lot of clients on what a spotted dog is, because they don't always understand that terminology. So you would recommend further drilling, infill drilling, so that you can increase the confidence. If you're looking at also the client, maybe they don't need measured material. Maybe, they would be just as happy having all indicated material. So this is a discussion you have to talk to with your client. I mean, every client would love to have everything in measured category, but that's sometimes, from a client's point of view, very uneconomic if they have to do, hundreds of thousands of dollars or another few $1,000,000 worth of drilling, because drilling is very expensive.
Yeah.
So you have to talk to your client, recommend drilling, yes, or is there another method that you can do? In some cases, if you're in a historical mining district, is it good enough to go and get, safely underground samples? If there's an underground workings, that would help. To a certain extent, does surface trenching work? Because all of these things should be included in a resource estimate if it's applicable. And that will help demonstrate continuity. So it's a question of sitting down with your client, seeing what the best methodology is to increase that confidence, get rid of the spotted dog, and ultimately, if you can't get rid of the spotted dog, then you have to sit down and say, okay, what can I applicably classify this material as? I mean, of course, everybody knows this, the simplest way to classify material is inferred. But I would argue that, with one drill hole, you don't have inferred material. You have a very interesting sample, but you don't have, 2 or 3 points to establish any type of continuity or direction to the mineralization. So again, inferred is easiest, but if your client wants to progress the project, and wants to bring it up to a pre-feasibility or feasibility study level, then they're going to need that measured and indicated material to do that. So they may have to go back and do more drilling. They may have to go back and do more metallurgical test work too, because in some cases, if you're looking at a multi-element deposit, one element is not carrying it because you're doing an NSR or you're doing another multi-element calculation, so they all contribute to the economics. So you may want to revisit the economics if you can. You may want to revisit, the inputs for cutoff grade, like mining costs, processing costs, G&A costs. You may want to take a second look at what you're using for your assumptions of, economic for the metal price. So there's a number of ways you can tackle this. I think, and in each one will be based on a discussion between the QP, the client, and the QP's, ultimate knowledge or comfort level with some of the things the client is going to also recommend, especially when it comes to parameters and metal prices.
Yeah. Okay, so if we start closing this subject, what is the main conclusion for you in this problem of spotted dog?
Well, I think the main conclusion here is that, the resource estimation doesn't end with, you having done the QA/QC, you having done the interpretation, the block model. It ends once you do the estimation and then take a step back, look at it, and say, do these classifications, does the measured classification, does the indicated classification that I've used my variography or other geostatistical method to classify the material as make sense? Is, measured is the highest category you can get. If you have a lot of little circles of measured material,
it's not measured.
Then it's not measured, because, the old adage of taking a sample and drawing a circle around it and saying measured, then going another certain distance and saying, okay, that's indicated. That doesn't work. Measured is from one sample to the next sample. It's not a circle around a sample point. Yeah. So therefore, does my measured or indicated classification, or even in some cases inferred classification, actually make sense when I look at this, when I apply the variography? You and I have done enough resource estimates, and in some cases we can't classify things as measured. We can comfortably give them indicated, but there's not enough continuity of the grade or, the quality of the material to comfortably give it measured. There's so many other variabilities with the QA/QC method and reviewing that also applies to this. But at the end of the day, the QP, whether they base it on QA/QC, whether they base it on variography, they have to be comfortable and be able to stand up in front of their peers and say, yes, I believe this is measured, and these are the reasons why. And if you have a spotted dog and people can demonstrate a spotted dog, then I think you can't stand up in front of your peers and say, yes, I can comfortably say this is measured, because you can't then turn around in the examples we've seen in some cases with these little circles of measured and say, I can comfortably put a mine plan around there. So therefore, I can, without a shadow of a doubt, say that there are reasonable prospects for economic extraction.
All right, Bill. I think we are now going to invite our attendees to ask questions. If they do, please go ahead now. I'm going to enable your microphones. Well, Bill, thank you very much for sharing this interesting topic with us. And for those of you who would like to take this discussion further, we'll be happy to have you to discuss your project with us. We can arrange to have Bill or other of our consultants for your project. Okay, we are now ending this broadcast. Thank you very much for being here with us today. Have a good day.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please feel free to leave your comments or questions, and be sure to follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our newsletter so you're kept informed on future episodes.